Public transport in Istanbul comprises a bus network, various rail systems, funiculars, and maritime services to serve the more than 13 million inhabitants of the city spread over an area of 5712 km². History. Public road transport in Istanbul dates back to August 30, 1869, when a contract to build a tram system in the capital of the Ottoman Empire was signed. With this agreement, Konstantin Krepino Efendi unregistered trademark Socia copyright des Tramways de Constantinople obtained the concession to operate public transportation for 40 years. The inauguration of 4 lines of horse-driven trams was in 1871. In the first year, the horse cars transported 4.5 million people on the lines Asap Kappa plus or minus Galata, Aksaray Yedikul, Aksaray Tufkapa plus or minus and Amina paragraph Na 1/4 Aksaray. More lines were added in the following years. 430 horses were used to draw the 45 carriages, including 15 summer type and some double-deckers, on 1,000 meter gauge track. In 1912, the horse-drawn tram had to cease to operate for 1 year because the Ministry of Defense sent all the horses to the front during the Balkan War. The tram network was electrified by overhead contact wire on February 2, 1914. The tram began to run on the Anatolian part of Istanbul on June 8, 1928 between Areska 1/4 Dan and Kar plus or minus R plus or minus Klat plus or minus. By the 1950s, the length of the tram lines reached 130 km. The trams were on service on the European side of the city until August 12, 1961 and on the Asian side until November 14, 1966. The same time as the horse car started to run, construction of the Tar 1/4 Nel, a short funicular between Pira and Galata, began on July 30, 1871. The funicular opened to service on December 5, 1874, the second oldest subway in the world after the London Underground. In the beginning, only freight and livestock were transported. On January 17, 1875, after completing the test runs, the funicular was opened to the public. It is still in service. A commuter rail line was built on the European side of the city from Cirksi to Harda plus or minus MKA paragraph Y in 1872, which was followed in 1873 on the Anatolian part from Haydarpasa terminal to Adegrismet. The ferry is one of the oldest means of transit in Istanbul, a city with 2 parts separated by the Bosphorus Strait and surrounded by sea. In 1837, British and Russian-owned boats started transport on the Bosphorus. The Istanbul Maritime Company was established in 1851 by a decree of Ottoman Sultan Abdul I Lmecidi. The ferry service began in 1853 with 6 paddle steamers built in the Robert White shipyard in England. The service was extended in 1859 to places around Golden Horn. After 1903 screw-driven steamboats were put in service. Until 1929 boats were imported. Later on the ferries were built in the shipyards in Golden Horn. At its peak the fleet contained 40 boats. In 1867, the same company started vehicle transport across the Boğaz section I between Kabatari and Areska 1/4 Dan with 2 ferries purchased from England, as the first scheduled ferry lines in the world. All ferry companies were nationalized in 1945. Bus transportation in Istanbul started in 1926 with 4 Renault Scania buses between Beyazıt plus or minus T and Karaka paragraph Y. The fleet grew up from 9 buses in 1942 to 16 in 1955 and to 525 buses in 1960, and then became the backbone of public transport in an ever-enlarging city. Several British and French companies operated all public transport in Istanbul until June 16, 1939, the date of nationalization. The newly established company Adigri ETT took over from then on the task of public transport in Istanbul. On May 27, 1961 trolley buses were put in service first between Tufkapa plus or minus and Amina paragraph Na 1/4 following the elimination of trams. However, they were taken out of service sometime later because they also hindered the growing traffic in the narrow streets of the old city. In 1988, a company called Alara Plus or minus MA Angstrom was established to run the services of LRT, metro and modern trams by the municipality of Istanbul. The company is still active and will be the operator of the new rail lines. Transportation today, metro. The construction of the underground railway in Istanbul began in 1992. The first line between Taksim and 4th Levent went into service on September 16, 2000. This line is 8.5 km long and has 6 stations, which all look similar but are in different colors. A northern extension from 4th Levent to Atata 1/4 k Otosanari station in Maslak entered service in 2009, as well as a southern extension from Taksim to Angstrom Irain station in Bayoğlu, near the northern entrance of Ta 1/4 Nl. Last northern extension for short-term, Harka plus or minus Uzman was opened in 2011. The rest of the southern section of the metro, which will run to Unikapa plus or minus, across the Golden Horn on a bridge and underground through the Old City, is also under construction. The southern extension of M2 from Angstrom Irain to Unikapa plus or minus over the new Golden Horn Bridge is opened in 2013. Then connected with airport and airport lines in 2014. On the Asian side, 26.5 km long M4 line opened on August 17, 2012 up to Kartal. The line will have a total of 19 stations when the second section as far as Canacal opens. A connection to Sabaha Gar Paragraph Car Section N Airport is proposed. Construction has also begun on the M5 which will link Ereskde, Armranai and Ekmekra Paragraph Y on the Asian side. Currently there are 124 Hyundai Rotem and 120 CAF trains in service. A trip along the entire line takes 27 and 32 minutes. All lines are operated by Alara Plus or minus MA Angstrom, which belongs to the municipality of Istanbul. Light Rail Rapid Transit. The Istanbul LRT is a light rail transit system which consists of 2 lines and is operated by Alara Plus or minus MA Angstrom. The first line began service on September 3, 1989 between Aksaray and Kartaltip. The line was further developed step by step and reached Atata 1/4 k Airport on December 20, 2002. The line has 18 stations and length is 19.6 km. As of 2012, daily ridership is 416 journey and 210.000 passengers. The other line was opened in 2007 between Edirne plus or minus and Mescid-i Selam. There are 22 stations and length is 15.3 km. Since March 2009, the line works between Topkapı plus or minus and Hapabala services operated with LRT vehicles built by ABB in 1989. As of 2012, daily ridership is 380 journey and 100.000 passenger. Funiculars. Istanbul is served by 2 underground funicular railways, of very different ages and styles. The older of these lines is the Ta 1/4 Nl. This line is the oldest underground metro line in continental Europe, and the second in the world after London. The Ta 1/4 Nl is 573 meters long with an altitude difference of 60 am and no intermediate stations between Karaka Paragraph Y and Ta 1/4 Nl Square. It has been continuously in service since 1875. It was originally steam-powered with 2 wooden trains serving parallel tracks. It was modernized in 1971. Today the line is single-track with a passing loop, electrically powered and runs on rubber tires with rebuilt XR-ATP MP55 vehicles. A trip takes approximately 1.5 minutes. About 15,000 people use the line each day. Unlike the modern one below which runs at strictly 5-minute intervals, this one has a less regular schedule. Opened in June 2006, a second modern funicular line, the Kabatari-Taksim funicular, is operated by Alara Plus or minus MA Angstrom and connects the Sibersport and tram stop of Kabatari with the metro station at Taksim Square. It is about 600 meters long and climbs approximately 60 meters in 110 seconds. Trams. Istanbul inaugurated horse trams in 1872 and these served the people of Istanbul until 1912. Following this date, electric trams were put in place and they were the main means for urban public transport until 1966. Many routes were built step by step, and it reached their most widespread network in 1956 with 108 million passengers in 270 shuttles and 56 lines. Tram cars were not modernized for many decades, and some of the 1911 electric cars were still running in the 1960s. At that time modern buses provided faster and smoother journeys. Because of those negative issues, tram system closed in mid-1960s. From starting 70, all this problem started, and by the mid-1980s, Istanbulians realized that non-controlling of motor vehicles and closure of tram was a great mistake. Many cities around the world like Tunis, Buenos Aires etc. also understood that error, and like them, Istanbul also planned for return of tram. As an experiment, Istanbul first opened a heritage tram at European side in 1990. Due to increasing popularity, they opened a modern tram in 1992, also at European side. Now, the Asian side is a heritage tram system, whereas the European side has both heritage tram and modern tram system. The modern tram line is initially operated with 55 low-floor Bombardier Flexity Swift and 32 Alstom Citadis. Suburban trains. The main line railway between the main railway station of the European part, Cirksey, and Halkala ±, supported a suburban train service with 18 stations along its 30 km length. A single trip took 48 minutes. However, most of the line was closed for rehabilitation works on March 1, 2013. The trains now run between Cirksey and Yedikule, with a trip duration of 16 minutes over 6 stations. Another suburban line ran on the Anatolian part from the main railway station Haydarpar to Gebze. From April 29, 2012 to June 19, 2013, the last stop was Pendik due to rehabilitation works. From June 19, 2013, the whole line will be closed for 24 months due to rehabilitation works. The 44 km long line has 28 stations and the trip takes 65 minutes. Frequency between journeys are 10 minutes in peak hours, and last journey is 23.40 in Asian side and 23.30 in European side. Bus Rapid Transit. The bus rapid transit system in Istanbul is called Metroba 1/4S. The construction of the Metroba 1/4S BRT line began in 2005. The first line runs between Ava ± La and Zar paragraph A 1/4 La 1/4 section Om. This line is 41.5 km long and has 35 stations, which are located on Istanbul's main highway, called the D100. It is currently operated with Mercedes capacity, Mercedes Citaro, and some Filiz buses. Daily ridership is 715.000 passenger. An extension to Belikta 1/4 Zar 1/4 opened in 2012. Bus system. The bus fleet has 40 vehicles built by MAN, Icarus, Mercedes-Benz, BMC, Filiz, Otoka, Temsa and GAR 1/4 Liu 1/4 Z. Total number of daily ridership is 3,621,908 passengers, and this number consisting of %30 of city's total transportation per day in 2012. Since 1985, private-owned buses called HO are allowed to operate under the audit of a degree ETT. There are 2.157 private-owned public buses, including 144 double-deckers. In 2010, the municipality decided to found a new company called Otoba 1/4 SA Angstrom for replace old vehicles faster. The fleet of Otoba 1/4 SA Angstrom, consisting 544 vehicles as of December 2012. The vehicles is completely low-floor and certified with Euro 5 standards. Seabus. On April 16, 1987, the municipality of Istanbul established a company to provide fast sea transport with catamaran-type seabuses. With the first 10 vessels purchased from Norway, modernization of sea transportation was achieved. Today, the company Adegridu serves 29 terminals with a fleet of 28 catamarans, including 6 fast car ferries. Ferryboats. ferryboats sail on 15 lines serving 27 seaports on the shores of Bosphorus and Sea of Marmara. The 20 older ferryboats carry 61 million passengers yearly. In the 1980s 150 million people were transported. Today, there is 3 types of ferry in Istanbul: sea buses, vapors and private motorboats. The first steam ferries appeared on the Bosphorus in 1837 and were operated by private sector companies. On January 1, 1851, the Angstrom-i was established by the Ottoman state. The Angstrom-i continued to operate the city's landmark commuter ferries until the early years of the Republican period, when they went under the direction of Ta 1/4 Kiye Denites Ilika degree Yletmeleri. Since March 2006, Istanbul's traditional commuter ferries have been operated by municipality. The current design of the Istanbul ferries, as we know them today, was largely created by the Fairfield Shipbuilders of Glasgow, Scotland, which also built the largest amount of Istanbul ferries since 1851. The companies which designed and built the traditional commuter ferries of Istanbul include the White Shipbuilders of East Cowes, England; the M.A.W. Graham Shipbuilders of London, England; Maudslay and Sons of London, England; R.A.&H. Green Shipbuilders of London, England; J.W. Thames of London, England; Napier, Shanks and Bell of Glasgow, Scotland; Fairfield Shipbuilders of Glasgow, Scotland; Armstrong Shipbuilders in Newcastle and Glasgow, United Kingdom; Atelier and de Chantier de France in Dunkirk, France; Hawthorne Leslie and Company in Newcastle, England; Kindertischer Ella Smith and So On Limited, Holland; Cantieri Navali di Taranto S.p.A., Taranto, Italy; and Haska Paragraph Y, Cami Plus or Minus, and a degree steamed shipyards in Istanbul, models of 1929 to 1938 and 1962 1989. Aerial lift. There is a short gondola lift line above the Democracy Park in the valley between Taksim and Moore Section Car, the Moore Section Car gondola, built in 1993. It connects the hotels Hilton Istanbul Bosphorus on one side with Parksa Hilton and Swisshotel the Bosphorus on the other side. The cable line is 333 am long and transports in 2 cabins with 6 seats each around 1,000 passengers daily. The trip takes 3 minutes. A second aerial lift line, the Iya 1/4p gondola, was opened in 2005 between the historical district of Iya 1/4p and the Pierlotti Hill. The gondola lift, built by the Italian Liatna Ropeways Company of Liatna Group, was the most expensive cable car line in Turkey, costing €5 million. Smart Ticket. Istanbul has an integrated electronic ticket system for bus, funiculars, LRT, metro, commuter trains, ferryboats and trams. The system uses smart RFID cards, called Istanbulkart, as tickets. The old Akbulai buttons are now being phased out as of 2012. See also, Rami M. Co-Section Museum, has exhibits about transportation in Istanbul, references. External links, Istanbul public transport websites. These official websites include timetables and maps, buses and funicular, Municipal Bus Transport Authority of Istanbul IETT, trains and trams, Alara Plus or Minus M or Turkish State Railways Turkish language, Turkish State Railways English language, ferry services, a degree Istanbul Sea Ferries, Angstrom-i Lara Plus or Minus, other links, timeline of the Istanbul Rail Transit Network, cityrailtransit.com, the Istanbul Metro, urbanrail.net, public transport by rail in Turkish cities, Rail Turkey.